What's going on, guys? This is Lior. Welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to make this video for you guys today. I've had a lot of people reach out to me about multifamily deal analysis. It's one of those topics that a lot of people are always interested in, and there's a lot of content out there, but you really gotta nail this part down if you're gonna be a successful real estate investor. So what I thought I would do on this one is really talk about 3 key components you really have to master if you're really gonna get your multifamily deal analysis right. I've got a pretty crazy day today where I'm filming this, where I've gotta go stop at a project site, got a couple of new contractors coming on, and I'm gonna have to go to another property, or we've got an appraisal for a cash out refinance. So I'll be kind of filming this throughout the day. You guys will see my different sites, and I'll kind of talk about the different aspects of deal analysis from the perspective of my actual property. So hopefully that'll give you guys some better context. So I'm gonna dive right into the first tip, which is figuring out your rents. Exactly figuring out how to do that, what you need to account for when you're doing the rent analysis, because that's probably the most important. But before I get into that, I do breakfast smoothies every day. So let me bang out my smoothie, and then we're gonna talk all about analyzing rents and making sure you're getting that done correctly. All right, so that main component's done. This has been a staple of mine for probably the last year, banana peanut butter breakfast smoothie. But let's get right into that first part, which is, like I said, analyzing the rents, right? This is probably where most investors get very, very speculative and really mess up on their underwriting, right? Because when you're analyzing multifamily, you basically have to analyze 2 different scenarios, right? You're buying a building with in-place rents, right? Whatever the rents are today. So whether they're super below market or whatever it is, you gotta analyze what they are today. And then you gotta analyze what do you think you can really bump them up to, right? Typically, unless you're buying super turnkey buildings where everything is at peak market rent, which is very, very rare. You're gonna wanna look at what's my upside on this building, right? So for that, you really gotta look at comps, right? Rental comps. And the way we look at rental comps is there's a couple of different ways of doing it. The best way by far is looking at comps that have already rented, right? So if you've got access to MLS, if you maybe have your real estate license, you can literally go on rented comps that have already been rented and leased out, and look at what did those units rent out at. Now, if you don't have access to MLS, you can go on sites like Zillow.com, Realtor, Redfin, all the big real estate websites, and you can basically look at active current listings on a lot of these websites, right? You can look at what units are asking for particular types of apartments. Now, that's obviously not going to be as good as a rented comp, right? Because we already know that rented comp, that's what the tenant is paying. That is a rented piece of data, whereas the active listings are what the landlords want, not necessarily what they're gonna get, right? So there's a little bit of a discrepancy, but again, those are pretty good data points. Rent-O-Meter and other types of websites like that, they give you more of a ballpark range for specific locations. Again, that's not super, super specific. If you're really gonna nail down underwriting, you're gonna wanna get very, very specific. Now, the other thing you wanna really remember about underwriting rents is, again, location is incredibly important, especially if you're gonna be in a major area like I am. I'm out of Boston, so in Boston, we have very, very localized neighborhoods where one neighborhood can command one certain type of rent, whereas a neighborhood right next door can be completely different, right? And this is where real estate becomes a very, very local game, because you really need to know neighborhood by neighborhood, depending on where your building is, what kind of rents you can get. And the other thing with this too is not only what kind of rents you can get, but you also need to know what kind of product you need to put out in order to get those rents, right? So if, for example, you're thinking maybe I'm gonna renovate a couple of the units, right, to get that top dollar rent, you gotta know, okay, but what kind of renovation quality do I need to go to, right? Do I need a luxury product with like beautiful finishes like quartz countertops, high-end stainless steel appliances? Or can I just put like a slab of granite? Do I need hardwood floors, right? All these discrepancies make a big, big difference on your renovation scope and your renovation budget. But they're also very localized to the market that you're gonna play in, right? So having this really specific market knowledge is really imperative to really nail down your underwriting, right? Because then you can really know, okay, these kinds of rents are achievable in this particular location. I know I'm gonna have this kind of product. I know I can get this kind of rent for this kind of product in this kind of location, right? So you really, really gotta nail down and really understand your neighborhood, your market, where you play in. It becomes incredibly imperative. And one last thing I'll show you guys before we hit the road. This is my underwriting sheet. So I am finishing up our underwriting for our latest rental project. I literally went through the same exact exercise where we have a 3-family building that we're buying for just under $900,000. Yes, you heard that right. Boston's very, very expensive. But I literally went through that exercise where, I know exactly what kind of rents we're gonna get for 3-bed, 1-bath versus 4-bed, 1-bath. I know the exact finishes that we're gonna have to put. I know exactly what Section 8 is probably gonna be paying in that neighborhood. So I'm really, really specific on my underwriting, which is really, really imperative for your overall investment success. All right, so I am off to the races. As I said in the beginning, I kind of have a pretty crazy day today. First stop is gonna be meeting a new contractor on site at one of our projects that we got going on. It's a 4-unit gut rehab that we're turning into rentals. So I got to meet the siding contractor. He's going to get going. I also got to meet my demo guy who's finishing up there. He's looking for a payment. So, just got to make sure he's doing what he's telling me he's doing, check his progress. He wants a milestone payment. So I'll kind of just figure everything out with him there. And after that, we're going to also hit another building that we own. That one we're doing a cash out refinance on. Give you guys more details as we head that way after. All right, so I just pulled up to my first stop. This is the 4-unit project we have going on right now. Again, that we're gutting completely to the studs. Gonna do everything brand new and then turn these obviously into rentals. So really cool project. I've got my siding contractor is doing my siding and roof for this one. Is starting today, so I'm meeting him on site just to go over some details with him. And then I'm also gonna meet my demo guy. They're, the guys are all finishing up, looking for payment. So just gonna make sure everything's going smoothly before I issue out the check, and then I'll get them paid. And then we're gonna talk about factor number 2 here too, right? For your multifamily deal analysis, which is how much you need to estimate how much it's gonna take you to go from whatever your as-is, right? Whatever your as-is rents or as-is building is, to your stabilized building, right? So whether that means you're doing a gut renovation where you're gonna absolutely do everything brand new, and you need to project the cost of that, or if you're gonna be doing just light work and kind of light patch up here and there. But basically, how do you project how much work it's gonna take to get you from your as-is product to your, stabilized product? Because that's obviously an very important metric in terms of returns when you're analyzing multifamily deals. So a big portion of this analysis is obviously figuring out construction costs, right? And construction costs, not always the easiest thing to do, especially if you don't have experience, right? When I first jumped into the business, I literally did not know a single thing about construction. I didn't even know what a permit was, to be honest with you guys. So figuring out construction costs is not an easy thing. So 2 pieces of advice for you guys if you're gonna be doing any sort of construction. Number 1, you better know if you already have experience and you're in the industry, you know what it's gonna cost, that's great. If you don't, what I would do is 2 things. You can either network with a bunch of other real estate investors and kind of see what their costs are for certain types of jobs. But honestly, again, if you're not from that industry and you don't really have that background in construction, that's not something I felt comfortable taking on myself. So I actually ended up partnering, right? I partnered with an experienced developer, an experienced investor who's already done a bunch of construction projects. And I basically used him as a way to learn about the industry, learn about the construction process, learn about costs and everything, right? So, again, if this is your first time doing something like that, don't take that on yourself. My advice is always partner, right? Provide value to that investor, whether you find them a deal, find them some financing options, whatever it is, but find some value to give to the investor. In return, he'll partner with you, and you can really learn the ropes, learn the construction costs, learn how to estimate things. Believe me, that's the path. I think that's the best path. As I continue to expand my portfolio, and if I ever do bigger projects like 20, 30, 40 unit ground up developments, you better believe I'm not gonna go into myself. I'm gonna find guys that have experience, that know what they're doing, and really figure it out, and really use them to figure it out rather than myself. And the last thing I'll say about this step as well, kind of going off that first point, right, where you really need to know your market, you really understand what your construction costs are gonna be for a specific type of product, right? Because again, it's very easy to overbuild depending on your business strategy, right? So again, if you're really trying to figure out what is it gonna take for me to push my top dollar rents in this neighborhood, that could be something completely different versus a neighborhood that's maybe a mile away or half a mile away, right? So that's why I started with point number one about really analyzing rents per specific neighborhood, per specific product type. Because once you get into this phase where you're analyzing construction costs, anything like that, where you need to figure out what it's gonna take to get to that stabilization point, right? That's where you really have to get very product specific, very neighborhood specific, and really, really know exactly what your end result needs to be and is going to be, so that your numbers align with that. All right, so I pulled up to my second stop. This is a 4-unit building that, like I told you guys, we've got an appraisal today. We're doing a cash out refinance on this bad boy right here. So we bought this one about a year ago. I stabilized the rents over the course of the year, so we got them fully up to market value. And now we're doing a cash out refinance. So I'm super, super pumped. This is as fast as we've ever done a cash out refinance, literally just about under a year or so. So I'm meeting out the appraiser at my property. I'll give you guys a quick overview, and we're gonna talk about the third key factor in your multifamily deal analysis, which is getting your expenses right. All right, so on the expenses side, you gotta really account for all the operating expenses of your multifamily. I see so many investors really kind of butchering this up. Because you really got to account for everything. And it's funny because I just submitted even with this appraisal here, I submitted all of our expenses for this property. I'm buying another one where I submitted our underwriting for expenses, and the lender actually called me up and said, hey, Lior, this is like the first time in a long time I've seen expenses that are actually accurate and real. Most investors that submitted expenses to me, they just not even close, right? So you got to account for everything, right? Including a vacancy budget, right? And guys, if you're not familiar with any of these terms, I've done other videos, so you can check them out. But a vacancy budget, where you're accounting for vacancy, because you can't assume your units are going to be rented 100% of the time. You're going to need a super solid maintenance and repairs budget, right? Because things happen, right? Every single month, you're going to have expenses, things are going to happen. You're going to have a property management fee, right? Because you're going to probably hire property management, especially if you've got enough scale to your portfolio. You're going to have to underwrite correct water and sewer, common utilities, and also snow and landscaping, right? Every single, especially in the winter here in Boston, you do get a lot of snow. You got to take care of that. So you got to really hit all of these expenses to really underwrite, to really make it correct, right? If you start skimping here or you think you're going to start skimp there, I'm telling you that's not the right path to go down. It's just you're gonna run into trouble. And if you ever submit your financials to a lender, they're gonna call you out on it, right? Especially the commercial lenders. They know they know how properties are operating. They know what expenses to account for. So you really gotta hit every single one of these operating expenses to really do it correctly. So hopefully all of that made sense, guys. Hopefully those tips were helpful. Again, multifamily analysis is always the trickiest part, but you really want to nail down these 3 components to really, really get your game tight. So if you guys obviously have any questions, make sure you comment below. And if you like this new style of video I'm shooting, trying to go a little bit more all over the place, take you guys to different sites while I'm still giving you guys this kind of content, give me a yay or give me a nay in the comments. Either way, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. And I'll keep doing more of these.